Hey guys, Nux333 here, and I'm back, It's good to be back on YouTube to do videos again. I've been gone for a while for multiple reasons, the usual reasons I give, such as life, college, things I'm working on. In terms of coming back and doing videos again, I will just be getting videos out just to talk about subjects and just do those types of videos I promised first before I move on to any type of videos that I might have ideas for. Like, my main goal is to just complete what I've already promised to complete. So yeah, how have I been doing? Well, I had a technology breakdown even before I had planned to make my YouTube come back, so in the process, I had to, wait and make sure I got all that fixed. Like, for example, my headset with my mic broke, which is what I've been using to record my audio this whole time to get crystal clear quality of my voice for these videos. Now, my laptop luckily has a built-in mic, which I use, for my Discord chats and such like that. So it's not like, without a mic, I'm that screwed, but basically, I'm stuck, using my laptop mic since it's the only one I really have until I can buy a new fresh quality decent one. And yeah, so quality may not be as great as usual, but with the power of editing, hopefully I do sound crystal clear to you guys. So now that we got the introduction out the way, let's go ahead and just start with today's video. Alright, so in today's video, what I want to do is discuss basically the topic of E3, which is something you all know I usually do every year, and a lot of people ask, are you going to be doing an E3 video this year? When it came to 2016, I only did one video, and that was actually talking about Nintendo and what they decided to do for E3 2016. So, it was different in that sense, and so maybe some people would think this year I would just not make one entirely, but no. I do want to continue that tradition and make an E3 video for this year. Now, you all know that if you've been following me in the past few years, I always get super hyped for E3 because, let's be real, it's a Christmas for gamers in that we are loaded with tons of gaming news, all sorts of hype goes full force, and it's all sorts of fun stuff like that. Usually I love to get into the E3 hype because it's my time to really enjoy gaming for what it is, all sorts of cool gaming announcements drops from all sorts of companies. It's just a really fun time, and it's in the summer, so you get time to, experience this and have free time usually. Although I won't have free time this summer because I do have some extra classes I'm trying to cover up and catch up on. But other than that, I still look forward to E3 basically almost every year. But as you all know, it really hasn't felt that way in recent years for me, and you all already know why. But for those new, here's my recap. So basically, one of the E3 presences I love to hype is, of course, Nintendo, and usually I make a video just for their E3s alone mostly, and bundled thoughts of maybe other companies like Sony and Microsoft like to the side with it. But this year, I just realized that going to E3 with big expectations is just not really gonna happen this time, and while I do think E3 is still a very hype event, a lot still gets shown off, there's a lot of news more than often, but so it's not really that bad. But it's just that when it comes to Nintendo, they really haven't had a good E3 showing in quite some time. Now, if I had to throw when the last really decent E3 was, in my opinion, the last decent E3 was at least 2013, 2014. I think those were okay presentations. They weren't actually bad. In my opinion, one of the best E3s in terms of really good quality was 2011 when they were showing off the 3DS and such like that. I think that was a good E3. I think that, 2014 definitely was, though, that last okay E3. But beyond that, it just did not do that for me. Now, E3 2013, again, was cool, but it had only a handful of games, and even with 2014, which I do think was good, I feel as though there were mostly a lot of meh game reveals. For example, instead of getting that real traditional Kirby on the Wii U, we ended up with Kirby Rainbow Curse, the sequel to Canvas Curse, which is a spin-off, which is not a bad game, but it's eh. And then we also have announcements like Captain Toad and Mario Party 10. It's it's like small stuff. It's not nothing really that exciting and blowing away. E3 2014 did have some good announcements, but the reason why I think E3 2014 was one of the most good recent E3s is because of Smash Brothers. I think Smash Brothers carried a lot of hype for those few E3s when it came to the first few years of the Nintendo Wii U. And thus, because of this, I think, when E3 has had to rely on something else, it's felt like Nintendo hasn't had a definitive plan of how to have content carry the show unless it's like one big game that carries the entire show. So, for example, when it comes to recent E3s, I think one of the worst examples of where they just had nothing to really carry the show is E3 2015. Now, I never got my official E3 2015 review out, so a lot of people don't know the deep details of my thoughts of that event. But let me just say that my opinion on that event was that it was really terrible. It was a horrible E3. The reason why I think it was so horrible is I think Nintendo was counting on that event to carry on a select few of games, similar to how I think some of their E3s have been structured. But when it came to E3 2015, really the big game that was at the forefront was Star Fox. And Star Fox, honestly, even at that time, didn't really look that impressive. Like, obviously, it definitely was hype at the time, and I was excited. But seeing it compared to, like, what I imagined a new Star Fox would be, a new Star Fox, let me just reiterate that, a new Star Fox, not a 64 remake of that Star Fox that's on the N64? Yeah. Not exactly what I imagined Star Fox Zero would end up being. And so for that reason, it really wasn't an exciting title. And considering that that was one of the things that was supposed to carry the show, and there were so many other games that were just like, yeah, it was horrible. And that's why I think E3 2015 is among one of their worst, only rivaled by E3 2008, which I think is like worse because they didn't even have any type of games, I think, there. I wouldn't know though, I'd have to go back and watch, but I think E3 2008 is the only other E3 that rivals that E3 because of how bad it was. And just some examples of why that E3 were bad, you already know. You got cheapifying Metroid, making it chibi and releasing this dumb spin-off when the series is in a bad condition. You've got like smaller games like Mario and Luigi Paper Jam. Like, while it is cool to see those worlds cross over, it was such a meh game in the end. You have announcing a Zelda spin-off like Triforce Heroes, It's like, okay, that exists. In my opinion, one of the worst things about E3 2015 easily is that they just ticked off almost every branch of their, every type of fan base that was under their branches. Like, they couldn't even impress Animal Crossing fans at that E3, and it's Animal Crossing. I mean, how do you mess up Animal Crossing by not releasing a proper Animal Crossing? It's just E3 2015 was a mess, And so that's why when it came to E3 2015, my biggest problem was not only the fact that it was a horrible showing, and it had such terrible lack in quality games, but I'm gonna be honest, it was a downright embarrassing time to really just be with Nintendo and all that. And that's why, one of the reasons why I haven't been that enthusiastic when it comes to E3, when it comes to Nintendo and all that as much recently, to the point where I completely understand why a lot more people become more critical of them over time. And it's even why I even see why, people do become like Nintendo haters or people who don't like Nintendo and prefer other platforms. I just see that now, seeing as how, low quality Nintendo can get when it comes to their E3 performances. So I guess we then have E3 2016, which wasn't necessarily a bad E3, but of course it was a very lacking one. Again, the big problem was Nintendo wanted the show to be carried by this one game that they thought would be okay with everything, except this time though, at the very least, it was a good game. Like, it was a completely good game. Zelda Breath of the Wild, good stuff, good game to show off and have take the forefront in terms of an E3 showing. I guess the only other game that was on a hype similar to Breath of the Wild at that time was Pokemon Sun and Moon as well. So those were good games, but the problem is, again, they were basically the only games carrying the weight this time. So to me, right now, when it comes to Nintendo and E3, the problem really isn't just their presence there, and not only is it the fact of how they present it and things of that nature, it's just the overall quality of what they do bring to E3 and how they do present it. Because even after E3 2015, things were still bad because there were no announcements, that much in the year 2015 to really follow up on all that garbage that was announced that they thought would be in place for really good games. And we were stuck dealing with them as those games, like for example, we had to, deal with hyping up Color Splash because that's one of the few last games Wii U was getting. And so that's the reason why, I see the end of that Wii U life cycle such a dark time, because we were just left starving for games and we had to just put up with garbage. Alright, so now I've just basically given my recap for Nintendo and E3 over the past few years, at least in terms of the history and course of my channel. Just my thoughts, over those E3s, how I think Nintendo has done in terms of approaching them, and what we're going to be, what's the status going into this E3. So while I don't necessarily have the time to talk about, how Nintendo needs to fix this with their game lineup, or how they need to fix this with how they do E3 and go into and all that, I do want to talk about E3, I guess, and my thoughts going forward. So first things first is addressing how Nintendo approaches it. See, back in 2014, I would have probably been frantically spouting how I think Nintendo does need to do stage presentations again, and how it'll make sense, and it'll make them, be up there with the other big companies. While I definitely still have that mindset at the back of my mind, I don't really see it as much a priority as I did, back in 2014. And not for the reason that, Nintendo's not going to do a live stage presentation, so let me just damage control, whatever they decide to do from there on out. No. The reason why I do, believe in other ideas other than stage presentation is, even in terms of the fact when we do get a stage presentation, it doesn't really change the content. It has to do with the fact that we recently have seen Nintendo do stage presentations, such as in the form of the Nintendo Switch event. And that event was basically kind of as meh as some of the E3s we've seen, So that tells me that going on stage isn't going to make the show any better. It's definitely going to be more helpful than hurtful, because it's going to add more wow factor, it's going to have more good marketing and press and all that. But even then, I do think that if they still have nothing to show, what's the point of going on stage, So, and in fact, in some ways, they've had terrible E3s because of this going on stage. In the case of, again, E3 2008 was a terrible E3, even though they went on stage. Just because they went on stage, it didn't, change the fact it was a bad E3. So at this point, it's more about quality as opposed to how, the quality is presented. Quality and quantity definitely still matter in terms of what content Nintendo shows, but at this point, how it's presented is the least of our worries, in my opinion. So whether it be a direct or a stage conference or whatever, it doesn't really matter to me now. In terms of this year, we do know that Nintendo is doing a Nintendo Direct style E3, so I can't really change that. That's what they're going to do. But I do have an idea of, if they do decide, more ideas for how they could go forward, I have my own little suggestion of how to balance the two. So my suggestion is maybe do a pre-recorded and pre-edited presentation like a Nintendo Direct sort of fashion. Have your information printed out with the devs, get all the interviews you need, get all the gameplay you need, edit that, all that craziness, put that together, and in terms of that, you can have that streamed in terms of the internet. And what I would do in terms of the actual E3, at the event place, I would, allow it to be shown out on the big screen live for everyone to see as well, for everyone to react to at the actual E3 place, so that press and all that can just watch the show, as well as people online. They can watch, that pre-recorded, pre-edited, Nintendo Direct style E3 while at the same time having some type of live hype and all that. But that's just kind of my suggestion. That's how I might think it'd be a good, perfect balance. Now, excuse me, I'm not saying it would be, 100% flawless, because I could see how some flaws would be in that. They still do have to pay to set up, a E3 presenting room if they're going to present it in that type of fashion and all that. But I think it would be a good suggestion. I do think it would be a good suggestion in terms of how they can combine that balance of live E3 hype as opposed to just Nintendo Direct style the E3. So, yeah. Alright, so now that we have, that discussion of catching up with E3 and giving my opinion on how E3 could go forward, let's basically put our minds in the present, in this current scenario we are in, and analyze how I think Nintendo's going to go about E3 this year. So we know that they are doing a digital event kind of thing, except it's called the Spotlight this time. I don't know if there's going to be any differences between that and the usual format they do, so yeah. I mean, I'm pretty sure it'll be similar to the streams that they've done before. It's just a new name to keep things fresh. I mean, it could be different for better or for worse, but we'll have to see. They do have Treehouse, which I always like Treehouse. I had no problem with it because it gives us that extra gameplay we need for certain games, like say Mario Odyssey. We know that's going to be one of the forefront games at the show. Treehouse will be good for showing gameplay for that and other games there, so I never had a problem with Treehouse. Treehouse is perfect in terms of that. They also have tournament hype in terms of having a tournament for Splatoon 2, and I think they are having one for ARMS. I might have to double check that, but yeah, they're having one for Splatoon 2 and ARMS, which is great because when it came to the last two tournament-like things with Nintendo in terms of the Smash Bros. Tournament and the Nintendo World Championship, that was really fun to watch, it was really cool. So I think that's a good thing to actually do. Now, in terms of what will actually be shown with, Nintendo's E3, your guess is as good as mine. I have a couple of ideas of what could be there, but in terms of their E3 this time, I have to say I have to go in with low expectations, because when it comes to past E3, as you guys know in my E3 prediction videos, I always expect Nintendo to go all out every year. But clearly they haven't, and the reason why is, I don't know. And while they did say that this E3 was going to be big, I'm not going to put too much faith in that word. Now, I do think that there will be some surprises and some generally cool things this E3 this time, because it's a new system. It's, it's got new opportunity and such like that. And I think they will at least try and have a lot more effort into this E3 than they did 2015 and 2016. Like, I think this E3 will at least be better than those two. Please, for the love of God. But yeah. So now let's just do a little go over of what could possibly be at either at their E3 showing, and just different games that we'll see. So again, I think one of the forefront games that will be at their E3 will of course be Mario Odyssey. I think Mario Odyssey will have a big focus there, similar to how Zelda had a big focus at 2016. However, the best I can hope for Mario Odyssey is, I know Mario Odyssey will probably look good. I know the developers definitely know what they're doing this time, because Mario Odyssey, in my opinion, is the Mario game that I was waiting for since Super Mario 64, in the sense that I wanted a sequel to Mario 64 where it's like Mario in 3D doing cool adventures in a new environment. And while I did like Mario Sunshine, I did like Mario Galaxy, I like the other 3D Marios, I want to see that core Mario, in 3D again, with no gimmicks like Flood or Space. I just want to see Mario exploring new areas as Mario, not too much to ask for, and that's what we're getting with Odyssey, so that's why I look forward to Super Mario Odyssey. So I have no concerns there, other than I just hope they're not going to try and pull a 2016, in the sense that they're going to let Mario Odyssey carry the entire show. So that's why I have to say there. We'll also see information on games that we already know. Maybe we'll see Splatoon 2 and ARMS there. I unfortunately the release date slipped from my mind. I'm not sure if those two games were to release before, after, or in between E3 or whatever. Those release dates slipped my mind at the moment, and I apologize for that. But if, I do think those games will make an appearance in some way, whether it be to talk about some content in those games or promote them in some way. They will pop up probably. I know in terms of Mario still, we will definitely finally probably see the rumored Mario X Rabbids game, which I still question why this game exists and if it will even be somewhat decent. Like, from what reports and what people describe, the game does have some sense of effort in it. It's not going to be maybe structured like a Mario RPG as of recent, where the recent Mario RPGs just have no sense of adventure, no sense of character like they did before. And while games like Color Splash do have decent writing and how they have the characters, be witty and stuff, it's just, with that broken gameplay and how unfun it can be, and the dry writing and no original characters to make that dialogue memorable, it's what makes the Mario RPGs kind of decline. And so the last thing I imagine we needed was a crossover with, on top of that, being a very just disgustingly unappealing character brand such as the Rabbids. At the very least, they could have done Rayman. In my opinion, Rayman would have been more cool because it's Rayman. I think he has some cool games, but then you're gonna just throw the Rabbids. They're basically the gaming minions. So yeah, I have nothing to say about that. It's gonna be there probably, and if it's not, I don't care. The only thing I have to really say is I hope Nintendo has a plan to really let, some type of game carry the fall other than Mario X Rabbids. To talk about that, there are rumors of some games that could potentially release in that period. I do think it's possible that we could see Pokemon at E3. Now, here's the thing though. If Pokemon maybe isn't revealed at the end of this month, in terms of the month of May, I think potentially Pokemon may not even exist, because Pokemon games never get announced at the actual E3 event or at digital event or at the conference or anything like that. They're usually already announced by that point, and then they use E3 to just talk about more information and just get people hyped about it. I don't know if they're going to actually go to E3 and straight up announce a new Pokemon game. And if they do, that would be pretty great. That'd be pretty mind-blowing. It'd be a nice twist to a usual Nintendo format, but you never know. So I'm kind of 50-50 on that. And if no Pokemon happens at all, again, I just hope they have good titles to carry that fall period leading into the holiday. I think holiday they're set with a game like Mario Odyssey, but in terms of that fall period, I don't even know. Again, I do expect to see updates and some information on games we already know, such as Xenoblade Chronicles 2. I do expect more info on that, and if it actually will come out in 2017, which my money would still be on. I do expect maybe at least one delay for that game. I don't think it's exactly ready for 2017, because it's a big open world RPG. Those don't just, come out on time usually these days. I imagine they take a little more time than they usually do in order to really get, the content they want to get into those types of games. So I don't think it's coming out this year, but if it does, I'll be impressed that they managed to reasonably get a game out like Xenoblade Chronicles 2 out this year. And I can just hope for the best for that game, because I still haven't really played Xenoblade Chronicles X. I did try to buy that game, but I didn't really end up buying it. And then in terms of the original, never even touched it. Beyond Shulk, no nothing. So yeah. In terms of, I guess, other games, moving on, there are a few games that we know exist, but they're kind of vague on details, and we need to see them at this E3. So we got Pikmin 4, which is a game that has been teased numerous times by Miyamoto himself. He's name-dropped Pikmin 4 multiple times, and some people are worried with Pikmin 4 because they think that Pikmin on 3DS, the Hey Pikmin game, is potentially Pikmin 4. I'm pretty sure Hey Pikmin has nothing to do with Pikmin 4, and Pikmin 4 is Pikmin 4, and it is a Switch game. I would bet money on that. There's no way that they're going to try and pass off this 3DS game as the next main installment in the Pikmin series. That would be extremely crazy, especially since they got the Yoshi New Island team on it. It's more of a side thing. You know it's not going to be the next big Pikmin installment. Pikmin 4 exists. I think the Pikmin fan base has nothing to worry about in terms of that. But I am kind of curious, is this game, ready to finally be shown? It's been teased, it's been name dropped multiple times, but we've seen nothing of it. I think it was potentially maybe going to be a Wii U game, in the sense that Pikmin 1 and 2 both came out on GameCube, and maybe the fourth was originally planned to come out on Wii U similar to the third, but they had to obviously move it to the Switch. And so potentially Pikmin 4 is a Switch game and they're just retooling it, and that's the reason why we haven't seen it yet. So I think Pikmin 4 does exist. It is a Switch game. We will see it at this E3, at least I hope we do. It should be. As for when it will come out, your guess is as good as mine. I have no idea when they could possibly put that. I think it would be a very good fall game, or maybe it'll come out next year. I maybe could imagine. You never really know when it comes to stuff like that. And then another game we know it exists, but it's kind of like vague on details, is Retro's game. Now, Retro's game, or games, we don't really know, because it's been, teased and talked about for quite a while. They haven't really done anything since Donkey Kong Tropical Freeze. They've been super inactive and just haven't really talked or, said a thing about what their project is. So we don't know nothing about what they're doing. And yet, I do expect to, at least I hope, Retro has their presence at Nintendo's E3 and they finally show off at least what they're working on. Now, there are a few theories as to what it is. If it's not a new IP, I can potentially see their new game being a Metroid, and that it is Metroid Prime 4. Now, that would be really cool because I actually do love the Metroid Prime games. I bought the Metroid Prime trilogy on Wii U. It's a good set of games. It has a really fun multiplayer. It's really fun to play. And so getting a Metroid Prime 4 would be great. It's very necessary in terms of really appealing and getting on good terms with Metroid fans again after the mess with Federation Force and even as far back as with Other M. Now, what kind of adds a little weirdness to this whole Metroid thing is then we have this whole 2 Metroid rumors where apparently there are 2 Metroid games in development, one by a totally different studio. There are a few that have been name dropped, and we will be getting that Metroid Prime 4 still. Now, this has me, kind of like, how are they going to set this up, really? Like, my dream scenario is that one is a 3D Metroid. It's Metroid Prime 4. It's being developed by Retro or whoever, and it does exist. That's cool. It's good to get back with Metroid Prime fans, and I'm hoping that the other one would potentially be a 2D Metroid similar in the vein to Super Fusion, and it would continue off from where maybe Fusion left off. And that would be really cool to see in terms of a new Metroid for both of those. But I feel like the chances of that are slim, and it could be possible one of these Metroids could be like another weird type gimmicky game, like another Federation Force. Like, I don't want to jinx it, but if we gotta be realistic and there are 2 Metroid games, I don't think both of them are going to come out extremely perfect unless Nintendo really did their homework this time. So we'll have to see how that goes. So when it comes to big surprises at E3 for Nintendo, keeping my expectations low, I can see potentially a Pokemon announcement. That's something that's very possible because it's Pokemon. Nintendo has to get that on the Switch at some point if they really want to get the best potential numbers that they can get with the Nintendo Switch. And plus, with all the rumors and stuff, I could easily see that Pokemon for Switch existing. Now, as of what it is, that could be for a whole nother video, but I do think there will be some type of Pokemon game, a main type of Pokemon game for the Nintendo Switch that will help it, gain some momentum in that fall period leading into Odyssey. I also can see one of these surprise announcements being Metroid in some form. Now, do I think that, we're going to have this 2 Metroid game rumor come true, or where we're gonna have a new Metroid for 2D and 3D. I mean, they have talked about how they want to make a 2D and 3D Metroid and all that, but I don't think both a 2D and 3D Metroid will be announced here, and we'll see perfect gameplay of both, and they'll be released in a similar time period. I could easily see one of the Metroid being announced here, and then just, it being it as a teaser or something like that, and it'll have a 2018 release date. So yeah. Another thing people think, potentially will be at E3 is Smash. We definitely do have to see that Smash 4 port, which is basically going to be the Ultimate Edition with the Wii U and 3DS version combined into a kind of definitive edition with all the DLC, all the characters, all that. When it comes to me personally, I definitely look forward to that because I do want a definitive version of Smash 4 because I think it's been one of my favorite Smash games so far. It's just fun to play gameplay wise. It's got a lot of cool features and stuff. It may not have as many deep memories as I have with Brawl, but it definitely is a great game that I think with a definitive port, it'll finally be a game that might look worthwhile to people. I mean, if the success, as many people are pointing out, if the success of Mario Kart 8 Deluxe is anything, a lot of people did not have a Wii U and didn't really buy, those Wii U games. So they're looking for different types of games to play. So maybe some more Wii U ports could be something that do in fact happen. And I think Smash will definitely be one of the first to happen next. And that's what I see in terms of major bombs. We might see one other maybe surprise, like a new IP. I think we will see a new IP in some form for Switch. Other than that, that's it. Pokemon, Metroid, Smash port, maybe a new IP. That's about it for, decently sized surprise bombs. And I guess if I have to say, at minimum, I could see Pokemon maybe not happening yet. And maybe Game Freak taking a little more time on that. But the other three, I could bet money on, maybe. I don't want to jinx it, but maybe. At least I think that's bare essentials of what Nintendo shows. I sure do hope that's at least what they can show to get some decent amount of hype out of people. Now, when it comes to a few other games left listed here, I have, two 3DS games I want to talk about because they do have plans to talk about 3DS at the E3, unfortunately. They don't want to kill the thing off. And at least these two 3DS games I have listed here are the only ones that I really would care about and turn my head towards. And of course, that is a Kirby game, which, what I gotta say to that is, I wish this Kirby game, which is supposed to be, for the 20th anniversary lineup of games, along with those deluxe editions of the two Kirby minigames, I really wish they just would have made a Kirby game for Switch, some type of Kirby game for Switch for the 25th anniversary for the series, instead of just making another 3DS one, because I know the Kirby team is definitely used to the 3DS and they want to develop for it and they don't want to let it just die out. They want to maybe give it a proper song for the Kirby series, but Switch with a Kirby game would have been great for this holiday. That's when this 3DS Kirby is for, but I guess it's a 3DS game, so we gotta deal with that. As for what it will be, who knows? They describe it as an action multiplayer game, so people have their theories as to what it is. Hopefully it's a really cool concept for a Kirby game. I probably will be interested in it because I love the living crap out of the Kirby game. Like I talk about how I wish it was on Switch, but it being on 3DS and it being maybe one of the last few 3DS Kirby games, I'll probably still pick up that bad boy. And I guess the only other 3DS game that's really catching my eye is the rumors about the Mario and Luigi Superstar Saga remake, which caught me off guard because the only Mario RPG they've talked about remaking is Thousand Year Door, if enough fans spoke up in response to all that color splash bashing and all that. But to go back and remake the Mario and Luigi series, that caught me off guard. And I think it's actually a cool idea because I don't think the Mario and Luigi games are that outdated, so it doesn't really blow me away that much. But I definitely do think those games with a reimagined take, with some updated stuff, maybe even some new additions, could be really cool. And especially if it's just a cool, $40 way of re-experiencing that experience in a new, fresh coat of paint, that's really cool. As opposed to, just remaking Thousand Year Door, which I already think is a pretty cool game and needs a re-release more and a spiritual successor more than just a remake. So yeah, the only worry I have for this remake is I hope to God it doesn't get some of the problems the current Mario RPGs have been having lately. I hope it definitely takes that charm that made the original great and just has it remade in a very nice fashion. Other than that, I think that's how I can see Nintendo's E3 going. And if all I've listed at least and all I've expected at least goes to plan, I could see this being a decently B-tier E3. You know, maybe B+, depending on what else they might announce. You know, maybe a certain port of a game that should have been localized a long time ago. Mother-free. Sorry, bad cough. But yeah, depending on how it goes in terms of just the basics I expect them to maybe announce, could be decent. I definitely do not think they will have a blowout. Like, they haven't had a blowout of, you know, information of games in just so long. And especially, you know, with how the direction is kind of unclear in some ways, you know, recently, what with their leader passing away and such like that. I definitely do think that Nintendo is still struggling to gain its feet in that regard. Hence why some elements of the Switch launch are definitely rocky and why it's definitely kind of looking meh to me so far. So hopefully this is going to be that good period where they start to build up on a good foundation. Otherwise, I don't know what else I can say. I mean, those last two E3s really hit me hard in terms of how bad they really were. So hopefully they can at least build up from those at the very least and build a decent E3 and make Switch look compelling enough for a holiday purchase from me. Alright guys, so those are my thoughts in terms of E3 2017 with Nintendo. If you want, you know, to see more talk about that and all sorts of stuff, you know, just let me know in the comments. Ask me any questions you might have, you know, give your opinion on Nintendo and E3 and all that over these past few years. And I hope you just enjoyed the video overall. Make sure to leave a like too, because that definitely helps. I know a lot of people do still watch these videos, but a like helps, you know, me see, you know, how many people do watch these videos still. How well do they actually do? Not that I actually make money off them, but it is really cool to see, you know, what kinds of people support them and if these videos are definitely still worth making for time and effort. Alright guys, this has been Nux, and I'm out. Peace out till the next vid.